Start here, Bessie.
Yep.
Can be.
I see you, baby.
No.
And now call to order the City Council meeting of March 13th, 2023. The time is 7 p.m. Opening prayer.
Yeah, please rise for prayer and remain standing with the pledge of allegiance. Against Almighty God, we gather tonight grateful for our life here in this community. But we're also grateful for the teaser of spring and the renewal of life that weather like today promises. And as much as we wish for weather, sunny days, please grant us sunny days for the residents of our community and those who live here. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Matheny.
Here.
Member Wyrick.
Here.
Member Warren.
Here.
Member Schroyer. Member Volt. Member Orr.
Here.
6 present. Member McLeister is absent.
Motion to excuse Member McLeister.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve as presented the February 2023 finance report, minutes from February 13, February 27, and codification updates to chapters 1172, 1301, and 1302.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and Hector is not here, so
Just bring it back.
yeah, we'll delay that for.
Can I, Matt?
Sure.
I thought we were gonna start with committee of the whole meetings first.
No, yeah, it's the opposite this time because we're replacing it.
Oh, okay.
We asked to.
But we did too. It is confusing.
Okay, thanks.
Hasn't been done since Ben's first year. Okay, so yes, we'll put the special presentation a little bit later. And at this time, we'll have recognition of the public for legislation on the agenda only. At this time, members of the public wishing to address City Council may do so. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes. Comments may be on any topic under the city's authority, and for tonight are limited to items on the agenda. The rules for speaking and the speaker's time will appear on both screens. This will serve as the only warning for everyone in attendance. Any violation of the rules will result in ejection from the premises. Anybody wishing to address council tonight, please approach the podium. Maybe Frank. So, okay, last call.
That is our.
That'd be Hector.
Okay, this is Hector. So we'll move on and yeah, we will pause.
You are Captain.
Please, intermission. We should all say that. Yeah.
Hello.
Welcome.
Waiting for you.
Mr. McDaniel, you are up.
Let's wait a minute to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll give you a minute to settle in.
How are you, sir?
We have a short meeting.
Good. You're more than welcome.
You pause, okay? Make yourself comfortable.
I am.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you want to go to the other item?
Yeah, let's just go to.
Okay.
Hector, we'll give you a second if you don't.
Thank you.
We'll finish that and come back to it.
Okay, so, then would you please read the title of Resolution 27-2023?
A resolution in support of the 2023 North Canton Community Survey to be conducted by the Office of City Council for the purpose of gaining input from the residents, businesses, and visitors of the city of North Canton on the conduct of North Canton city government and the issues facing the same,
We do this survey, what, twice a year?
once every other year.
Once every other year. The form this year has some great questions on it, that I've been able to look at. They were really good questions. And, we sent this out to the citizens. I think we're gonna do a direct mail piece this year. And this is all paid for from a grant from, I think, Kimball, from recycling and stuff of that nature. So it's not gonna cost us anything, but we're gonna get some input from our citizens. And what better way to learn where we're failing or where we're succeeding at in surveys like this. So I think it's a very, very good idea. And this is the, first reading of this. Daryl, thank you for last week for introducing this. So, any questions or comments?
Is there any particular focus that you're thinking or?
I had, after the meeting, excuse me, may I?
Yeah, go for it.
Christina had a suggestion on question 20. And that was the description of the Hoover factory. And I think we have absolute clarity. I think you wanted to add an adjective, did you not?
Well, I think it says West Factory, and who knows what that is? You know, I mean, we all know what that is because it's so active in our language. But
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
I know we have a limited amount of space,
Mhm.
but is there a way we could just recalibrate that question just a little bit to let it know it's the undeveloped vacant portion, West Factory, vacant.
Would
Main Street
Factory.
Red brick.
or Main Street facing,
Yes.
or
Facing part.
Yes. Ben, maybe we'll just leave it to you to come up with some language. This is the first reading on this.
Yeah.
I will do my best to fit as much description as I can.
Squeeze it in.
And then I really thought that one question about the Lions, or is it the Lions Park?
Rotary.
Rotary Park was a great question there. Yeah, this is a great thing and hopefully, vote on it and go from there. Thanks, Ben, for.
I move we adopt.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on. Hector, do you want to give your presentation now, or do you want to wait till after the department reports?
Whatever fits you up.
Go for it. All yours.
Well, I'm Hector McDaniel. I am the current president of the Stark County NAACP. I'm into my second term. And I'm not sure if you know much about the NAACP, about its body of work, its origin. So I want to share a little bit about that with you on today.
Hector, if I may,
Hector, do you want to? Oh,
if you would like to speak from the podium, because we have some citizens here that like to capture what's happening here at City Council and they share it
Sure.
to the community. So
Sure. So I'm just gonna share a few brochures. Share them, please.
you can do that.
You don't mind sharing, do you?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
thank
A
you.
couple more. While I finish passing those out, I think it's also important to note that first and foremost, March is the month that we celebrate women. And we celebrate their accomplishments, their achievements, their value, and their worth. And so I don't know if you've done that yet, but if you haven't, you should. We hear comments all the time behind every good man is a good woman. I like to take that further and say there's a great woman. But where would we be without women? So the thought went on today. This entire month, again, is a month we are sharing, and I don't mean we as NAACP, but we as a nation. March is the month that we celebrate women. So if you didn't know that, now you know. But anyway, real quickly here, I want to share with you about the Stark County NAACP. And first, let me just give you some origin of the NAACP. It is not a coffee shop. It's not a donut shop. There are 2,200 branches of the NAACP around the country. We have 2.1 million members. We have 38 branches right here in the state of Ohio. The NAACP right now, as it stands, is 114 years old. It is the oldest organization on the planet when it comes to civil rights. The other misconception about NAACP is that it's a Black organization. And so I did an article about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I wanted to really talk about the kind of organization that it is. There were people that look like you and me that sat around and developed the NAACP at its inception. The most important element was about looking at people who had been disfranchised and marginalized. And so it didn't matter what color. If you fit that category, you fit the category of the work of the NAACP. And so as the president of the NAACP, I oversee about 21 different committees. You have a short brochure that talks about those committees, whether or not they're economic development, whether it's criminal justice, voting rights, education, whether it's health. It covers a wide range of issues and concerns that we face in our communities. What we know about our communities is that they're similar in so many ways. And so when you talk about injustice, injustice really doesn't have a color. And so one of our main goals is how do we attack that? And we attack that by being more diverse and by making sure, first of all, that we share the information and we share the history. And so my last couple of years have been really about sharing the history and the development of the NAACP in Stark County. And in doing that, I've seen many faces, and some of them have looked at me just like you're looking. I'm no stranger to these rooms whatsoever. I've been around. Just a little bit about my background and my history. I spent 18 years working in psychiatry for the Department of Veterans Administration. I honorably served this country as a Armed Forces service technician. I did that in the Army and then as a specialist in the Marines. I am 66 years of age. I've been married 42 years. I have 4 sons, 14 grandchildren, and 6 great-grand. So again, just to give you a little bit about me, I'm from the Cleveland area, born and raised in Cleveland, and been in this area about 30 plus years or so. When I retired from the federal government, I went into public service, and that's what my last 10 years of my work has been about. How do we make our communities better? By the way, my wife works in North Canton schools, and she thinks it's a great place to work. So I have to let her know I came in and spent some time with maybe some of the colleagues here. So,
Absolutely.
but again, at the end of the day, I was invited to come in. Stephanie and we had an exchange every year. We had a mayor on our forum last year, but every year we do what's called a public forum, and we reach out to community servants all around, and we have them come in and talk about, what their role is in terms of how they serve their communities and make them better. And so we had an opportunity to chit chat just for a moment. She thought it would be great to come in and just kind of share with you a little bit about NAACP, a little bit about the history, and how going forward we may be able to collaborate again, because when your community is safe, my community is safe. When my community is safe, your community is safe. And so it's about how do we collaborate and make that happen. So any questions or anything that you'd like to ask of me at this time, feel free to do so.
I do. How long have you been with the NAACP now? Just a year, correct?
I'm in my second term, but I've been with the NAACP 10 years. And so I'm in the second term as their current president.
Yes. And then when you came in, did you have certain goals you were trying to accomplish or certain things you wanted to get done?
Well, I first came in and took a look at the internal structure of the NAACP. When I came in, it was in a disarray. I like to describe it as, getting a car that had 3 wheels. And so the first couple of years was really about putting that fourth wheel on, getting us up to speed so that we could drive. The internal structure probably is the most important structure of the NAACP because it's a structure that really talks about organizationally how you get things done in the community. The way that the NAACP gets those things done is by way of committee. And so if committees don't work, guess what? Work doesn't get done. And so building capacity was a number of goals that I had coming in. But I also noticed too, you know, the 6 or 7 years that I sat on the sideline, I did see a lot of activity that really involved the membership. That's the other important aspect of NAACP. The most important power structure in the NAACP is the membership itself. The membership steers and guides that NAACP. As the president, I oversee some things, but I don't run it. I facilitate a lot of things, and I have some kind of control that I can use at discretion, of course. But it's the membership and it's the executive committee. And so I have 21 people on an executive committee, and they kind of call the shots to some degree in terms of what we need to address in our community. So
Yeah, that's great. So when you are out presenting and trying to kind of enlist different kinds of support, is there something that you think as a city we could help with or do or collaborate with?
Well, I think the first important element is what we're doing. You really need to know the history. You need to know the education, because when you don't have that, you really don't know where you fit. And I can't tell you all the rooms that I'm in, and when I'm sharing about NAACP, and I get a look like, you mean I can? Sure, you can. If you go back and you look at the history, if it wasn't faces like these, it wouldn't be an NAACP. So it's not a Black organization, and I stress that time and time again because there's language that we use, and if you're not careful, you're frightened of it. And so, for example, if I talk about social justice, I mean, what is that? And why is that important? Right? I'll get these kinds of looks.
Oh,
Why is it important? What is it?
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, when you say faces like us, you mean white?
No.
Well, what do you mean then? What, you said because, you said because we're responsible for the NOA. I didn't understand that.
Let's take care of faces first. Faces like.
Well, oh.
Right? But if I was talking about math, you wouldn't look at me like that. Right? Because you know math. You shouldn't, anyway. I'll take it for granted. But anyway, so it's those faces, and I'm in rooms all the time, all over the place. But social justice, it can frighten people because they don't really understand the significance of it. And it doesn't mean that you have to go and grab your picket sign and go down there with me to the court and raise hell. Social justice is about the distribution of equal opportunities for everybody. So whether it's health, whether it's education, is it equally distributed? And so, to your point, a lot of my movement throughout the community is really educating and sharing so that you get a good sense and you have a nice foundation to frame your points of references when we're having these kinds of conversations.
Under your predecessor, I had the opportunity to participate in some of the outreach programs that you've had for the community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very much needed still. And do you plan to continue on some of those things?
Actually, right
on
now,
a number of different topics.
Mayor, right now we have a huge criminal justice team. Of course, we're talking about police reform and the significance of it, and we're talking about how does law enforcement have a better relationship with us? Super important. Hottest topic around. You know what I mean? And how does that happen? So I have a great criminal justice team. Retired law director from Canton is on my team. Retired Professor Dean Carroll, University of Akron is on that team. Mm-hmm. And so they're in the process right now of developing a couple of different programs. One's a gun backpack program. Akron's been doing, some of the counties been doing it for quite a while. It's been pretty successful. The other is called the Safe Surrender. We know that there's so many people on the street with felonies. Some of them, of course, are nonviolent, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't turn into a violent situation. And so we're on the street right now trying to simmer down how we want to go about doing a safe surrender and what that program is. For people who have nonviolent felonies, we find ways to get them into a safe environment to see about how we can get those felonies handled. So those are just two that we have on the right. And the other one is called a Fourth Amendment, unreasonable search and seizure. And so we specifically target middle school students to bring them in and actually have them sit through what it feels like to get pulled over and get stopped. And during the process, you're actually processing through. So the officer is talking about what their concerns are. Because sometimes they don't get an understanding that, you know what, it's not just you, but it's the officer also that's stopping you. But anyway, at the end of the day, the goal is everybody needs to get home safe.
Right.
Right?
And have a better understanding.
You need to get home safe at the end of the day. And so, you know, what do you need to do? And so processing through those things, and those are actual kinds of working through. And so you'll see the officer stop and you'll see the person trying to process through, and we want to stop and frame that. We want to talk about, you know, what you're feeling, what you're going through. So, Mayor, you know, those are a couple of things that we have on the horizon.
I worked with Dean on a Fourth Amendment program a couple years ago.
That's great.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's a great guy.
Good man to have on your team.
Great guy, sir.
I'd like to add this. I don't think we're supporting our police like we should. It's organizations like yours should be putting out to the general public that the police have the authority to stop and question people, and people are obligated to respect and comply with the police orders.
Correct.
And by not doing that, and we're seeing it on a regular basis, people fleeing, people dying.
Sure.
If it was impressed upon throughout the U.S., comply with the police,
Sure.
and in conjunction with that, have their actions videotaped.
Sure.
So if they run across an officer who's a little rough,
sure,
they can be reviewed themselves.
Yes, sir.
I'm just getting tired of seeing all these YouTube videos where people immediately say, you don't have the right to question me, you don't have the right to question, receive the documents that I'm asking for. If we would make it clear to the public, you will respect your officer, you will comply with your officer, we wouldn't have these.
Sure, and the other part, and the other part to that, and this is what we're talking about with some of the program that we're doing, but guess what the officer needs to do?
Both sides need to respect each other.
So when you're sharing that, share the whole story.
Well, I thought I did. I said respecting both sides.
So the respect is important, and so what we've also done is we've researched looking at safer policing throughout the country. 2018, 2019, Canton, New Jersey was one of the deadliest places in the country. And so they instituted community policing. There's a number of things that went into that. And when you talk about police reform, it's not just what the police can do or need to do. What we discovered that a major part of police reform was the community's involvement and the role that they have to play in it and their responsibility in it. And so as an NAACP, I can't speak for other organizations. I can only speak for what we're doing in Stark County. And in Stark County, it's about trying to change the narrative and change the culture of that. And so when you work with middle school students and you give them an opportunity to develop a relationship with law enforcement before they really have to have an encounter, it's a relationship that's built now. And we need a relationship. And so yes, do you need to respect law enforcement? You're right. Does law enforcement need to respect? You're right. And so it's developing that relationship though that allows that to happen. Otherwise, it's always adversarial, and you don't think somebody getting stopped thinks about, you know what, this officer needs to get home safe. And so we want to work that, and we want to make sure, guess what, that's a part of the conversation. They've got families, wives, children, they need to go home safe too, right? And so if we don't really start to make sure that that's something intentional that we're doing, we may have a tough time to change it.
What kind of response do you get from the kids when you have these programs in the schools?
They're asking questions that, because of, that YouTube or all that other misinformation that they're getting. For example, I have one, he's probably 13 years old. He says to one of the officers, well, how many times do you have to shoot a guy? I mean, and here's a 13-year-old, so he's thinking that the officer should know how to shoot a guy, maybe in his ankle or in his knee. It's like, the fallacies that they have, you have to go in and you have to disassemble that. And if you don't intentionally really attack those things, they fester and they can grow, and we can see some of the violence and some of the things that we. You have an opportunity to ask me anything that you like.
You still didn't get the answer to my question.
What is it?
When I said, or asked you, you said it's because of people like you or something like that. We have the NAACP, and I said because of white, and then you said, no, that's not in the computation. What I want to know is, was it because of white people way back? Is that the reason for it?
Sure.
Okay, then it was because we're white.
Sure. It couldn't have happened.
And I just want to know the answer.
I do a lot of this, Stephanie, at church. I'll go to a visiting church, and I'll say some things because they don't have to invite me back. And so generally when I'm in rooms and I'm having conversations about race and discrimination, I tell people I don't have a problem being black. I've been black all my life. If you got a problem with me being black because you're white, it's your problem. And guess who needs to fix it? I'm not gonna own your problem because you got a problem with me being black. I don't have a problem being black. I've been black 66 years.
Don't look at me.
I'm just saying. But I'm just saying, and so these are hard conversations that I'll have, and I don't mind having them.
Where do you go to church?
Union Baptist.
Where's that at?
It's over on Canadian in the Southeast End.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good.
And we have to have good, honest conversations if we're really gonna solve things and get things done. And you can't be afraid. It's amazing how when I'm having these conversations in those rooms, that I go away saying to myself, did I express it well enough? Did I share that at the end of the day, it's not our color, it's not our race, it's not our religion. And did you get it?
You started the conversation off about expressing the importance of women in our society. What prompted you to start that off? Just because it's the month, or we had International Women's Day, or?
Well, a combination of both.
Exactly.
But I'm a huge proponent, of the importance of women.
Sure.
And of course, I'm a faith-based guy.
May I share something?
And so when I don't know what your faith is, I don't know what you believe in. I can only tell you what I am. What I believe. I'm a faith-based guy. And so when I travel faith, back some 3,000 years ago, one of the most important messages that was given to a woman. Right? It was Mary, right? And she went to the tomb and he wasn't there. And she panics. And so all of a sudden, here's this sweet, soft voice says, hey, don't be afraid. Then Jesus speaks to Mary and tells Mary, guess what? Tell him, risen, right? Well, where were the fellas? They're scattered, right? Nowhere to be seen. So I applaud women because I understand the real significance and importance of women. And not only that, I had a wonderful mother and I have an awesome wife.
Well, if you'll indulge me just for a moment as we close out, I shared a message with our female employees here in the city. May I share that with you?
Yeah, please.
I said, let's not forget, today, March the 8th, 2023, is designated International Women's Day. This day is dedicated to recognizing and to help forge a gender equal world. Celebrating women's achievements and increasing visibility while calling out inequality. I want to take this moment to recognize each and every woman employed at the city and to give a heartfelt thank you for the service you provide in your respective roles for our community and for us. You all play an important role in our lives and communities, and I will never forget how important you are. And I think that's what you're kind of sharing today.
Oh, that's powerful.
We can't forget how important the women are, not only in our employment, but in our lives.
No,
Thanks for coming in tonight.
yeah, you're more than welcome. I'll close by saying, if you don't know how important you are, what you can play in terms of changing the culture and the narrative, you minimize who you are. I'll repeat that. If you don't know how important you are in changing the culture and the narrative, you minimize your importance. It's bigger than you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Steph. I'll reach out.
Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
I will be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Safe travel.
Yep.
Take care.
Let's move on to department reports, and we'll start with Patrick, Director of Administration.
Okay, so, I'd like to, make a report, have a dialogue with the council on a matter that probably doesn't ever come up, but needs to come up. And that is, in relation to the Dogwood Pool. And we're getting close to pool season, right? It's gonna open May 31st. And, in, my analysis of looking at the operations of the pool, over the last 5 to 10 years, we seem to be, going through an issue that is getting worse each year. And it's one that we should try to address, this and see if we can find a better solution. And it seems trivial, but it really isn't when you look at the bottom line. So it has to do with chairs. Chairs. We have chairs at the Dogwood Pool that people take out, use while they're there. Reclining chairs, lounge chairs, sit-up chairs, just, chairs. And each year the abuse of these chairs gets worse and worse. And I'm choosing my words carefully when I say abuse. Talking with our management team there, many of these chairs are used in some type of a gymnastic performance. And are just, they don't care. You stop them, you come back, doing the same thing over and over again. And so each year we are attritioning out, 30% of the chairs. We're losing them. These are not cheap anymore. Okay? They're, you're looking, and nothing is cheap that's sold to the government. We all know that, but we do our best to find sources that are reasonable and that, we would hope last more than one season under regular use. But, you're looking at in the, $40, $50 for a reclining chair kind of thing, and lose, 40, 50, 60 of those every year. Do the math. That adds up a lot over time. So what we wanted to encourage is this year is that I made the decision to not buy any additional chairs. We're gonna go with what we got, but we're gonna get the word out. So start here today, and Mr. Wang's gonna give us a shout out here. That we're encouraging folks to bring their own chairs. Bring your own. They're welcome. If you don't even have to bring a chair, you bring a towel. A lot of people just put the towel down and, you use that. But to bring your own chairs, and you feel that you're most likely take care of your chairs. And a lot of people bring chairs. But I think we're gonna need to make sure that the word gets out that you need to bring more, because it just seems kind of counterproductive to just every year keep budgeting a higher and higher amount of chairs. And then, wonder why, as part of our pool rates, why they have to be adjusted, because we keep having to go through it. And the more people that come, the more we experience that. So, we're glad that we have a lot of people, but we expect people to be respectful of property there. And it extends not to just the chairs, but there's also, the issue with, people bring in their own food. We understand up until this time that the food choices at the Dogwood facility have been limited. As you know, we are doing the Dogwood Pool House project, and part of that is getting a new concession operation there that will be able to offer a bigger range of food options. But people bring stuff in and don't properly dispose of it. Just throw stuff on the ground and just leave it there when they go. And then it resorts to management staff having to clean up and dispose. And it just, we're going to have to do a better job making sure that people respect the property that's there, because it is the community's property. It's not for you to come in and destroy as you see fit and then walk away because you bought a $14 day pass and you think that's a license to just do what you want at the facility. So it's a serious topic, and I'm not trying to come off as being hard or difficult, but it's something that it's a resource that we have to manage, and I have to manage it every year. And so having done this 5 years now, it's just that I just couldn't see doing it again. So I'm letting you know that. And certainly be, happy to talk to any constituents that may reach out to you on that, or that, call into City Hall, certainly answer their questions. But that was the extent of my report.
What are the chair situation like over at Arrowhead?
Well, it's different group of people that belong at Arrowhead. It's, the membership there is significantly higher than at Dogwood. We know that, as an example, a single resident with a single rate, not a senior, it's like $124 for a season pass. Over at Arrowhead, it's several $100s for that pass, $300-400, and for a family, it's more. And you're getting a different crowd there that looks at property differently. Whereas we don't sell day passes at Arrowhead.
Do you think, so if there's a lot of complaints this year, I guess we could reevaluate and then up the prices accordingly?
Figure something out. We have to, people have approached me about, as we round table this internally, like, what about if we, took a deposit for a chair or something like that? Rented the chair. Many places you go to when you go to a hotel or vacation resort kind of thing, you pay for that kind of stuff. And but that takes people, that takes management, it takes accounting, inventory control. There's so much that goes into it. It's not as simple as just saying, well, here's $5 to hold this chair. It's more complicated.
Another thing that we kind of tossed around was, could there be a chair membership? You pay a higher price. I'm a pool user. My friends are pool users, and we love our chairs. I'm not gonna lie. Like, that's, I think, a huge benefit of our pool is that it has these chairs. But I understand. There's a social responsibility, and people aren't being responsible, you know, you can't keep buying them again and again, but I think you're right, like, let's see what happens
Yeah,
in a year and then,
I'd want a chair too.
yeah.
If you
And
bring
you're
your
carrying all
own-
your
you bring
kids
your own
in and-
chair, you could, you know, you might get 50 cents or $1 discount.
It's gotta be more than that.
Yeah, I don't wanna drag my chair, period.
No.
Not interested, but I can go to Arrowhead, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, so, but I think there'll be some pushback,
Yeah.
disappointment, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that idea though.
And just to kind of rewind, we're on the cusp of making a significant investment in a new pool structure. And Patrick's comment underscores the important nature of just behavior. We're gonna make a major investment. We have to ensure that behaviors, to Patrick's point, do not destroy public property. Whether it's the grounds, whether it's the chairs, or whether it's the pool structure itself.
Yeah.
Big deal. I think that's something that we should be mindful of as we move to the new building and then the operation with that new building. Behavior.
It's a good point. I mean, I worked at the pool in high school. I mean, the behavior there was, I saw things that were just absolutely ridiculous, very disrespectful. There was always some sort of property damage. I mean, on a weekly basis. So that's a good point. I mean, but the chairs, I mean, people use them like you're saying, acrobats, forts. I mean, whatever they could come up with, and those were, I mean, very solid chairs, and people very much disrespected them. So, yeah. Anything else? Moving on, Gina, Director of Finance.
I have no report, but I did want to remind our public that tax filing day is approaching in about 5 more weeks, April 18th. We will follow the IRS filing day of April 18th. That we do encourage online filing, of course, through Rita. They did send us a few packets that are outside of the utility counter.
Thank you, Gina. Mayor.
Oh, yes, thank you, President Story. Just want to bring to our community's attention, just recently, two of our educators in North Canton, Melanie Mesmer and Tam Grangine, were named Stark County Music and Art Educators of the Year. And that speaks highly for our schools and for these two young educators. Again, congratulations to Tam Grangine. She's an art teacher at Hoover High School in North Canton City Schools, and she's a 2023 Art Educator of the Year. And also, again, congratulations to Melanie Mesmer, music teacher at Northwood Elementary in North Canton City Schools, who has been named the 2023 Music Educator of the Year. And they were selected through a process in cooperation with Massillon Museum, the Canton Museum of Art, and the Canton Symphony Orchestra, as they joined together to present the Art and Music Educator of the Year awards, to recognize other finalists who are involved in the arts for their service in their respective communities. So I think that's noteworthy to note that we have two people here, educators in our own school system, that have excelled and been recognized by their peers. Also, in cooperation with our city, thank you to Walsh University, a physical therapy community clinic. And Walsh University is taking registrations for the annual physical therapy community clinic. And that's on April 12, 13, and 14. And those sessions are open to the public and offered at no charge. And community members may choose between in-person appointments at Walsh University or a telehealth. And there's more information on their website and also on our website, bringing this to the attention of our public, a free health clinic put on by their physical therapy group. I want to give a shout out. We had a nice interview from Sharita Gaucher. She had an article, I believe, in Saturday's newspaper, bringing to attention again a reforming of the North Canton Ministerial Society Association, and a group of pastors from our faith-based community have gotten together and rekindled this because it was in operation prior to COVID, and through coming out of COVID, people were calling even City Hall or them as to special needs that other families may have had coming out of that. So again, its goal is to foster a mutual network for support in their community in a number of areas, whether it's food, clothing, lodging, things like that. So I just wanted to thank, again, Sharita Gaucher for writing that article. Bring it to light, again, the North Canton Ministerial Society Association. By the way, Pastor Carl Pace is the president of the association this year, and he's senior pastor at Zion United Church of Christ, right here at 415 South Main Street. Just wanted to share that with you. And what else did I have? I also want to share a thought too, that regarding the Supreme Court decision regarding the levies. And I just want to go on the record saying, I want to thank the Supreme Court of Ohio for their expediting and attention regarding the election matter as presented in the writ of mandamus or as submitted by the City Council of North Canton. While I admit I'm disappointed with the court's opinion, I acknowledge their analysis and interpretation of the factors presented to them. I want to thank Law Director Wayne Boyer for professionally processing City Council's request for levies and for his discussions with Stark County Assistant Prosecuting Attorney Deborah Dawson. I also want to acknowledge and respect the Stark County Board of Elections for their exercising their responsibility and administration regarding this matter. I believe constructive outcomes can be realized from all parties involved. The city administration and council will continue to pursue ways and goals to help maintain, strengthen, and improve the infrastructure regarding our roads, streets, water retention, and detention areas for storm water management. Thank you for that. And last but not least, would Chief Frank Kemp please come forward for a special presentation? Let's sneak behind you here. Thank you. Over the past years or so, with Chief Kemp, we've always talked about continuing education for our senior leadership. And Chief Kemp found a program that was available through the Federal Bureau of Investigation. It's the Law Enforcement Executive Development Association, or FBI, LEDA. And for Chief Kemp and Lieutenant Cardwell, yes, they have both completed a series of courses, yes, and those cover, I refer to my notes, Senior Leadership Institute, the Command Leadership Institute, and the Executive Leadership Institute. Therefore, it's called the Trilogy series, and you and he, Lieutenant Cardwell, have completed it successfully. Yes. And the FBI and LEDA have awarded this plaque to be held or to be shown, hopefully, for everybody to know. But come on forward so I can present it to you. But it reads as follows. The Agency Trilogy Award in recognition of the North Canton Police Department for dedication to law enforcement leadership as demonstrated by all command staff completing the FBI LEDA Trilogy Series. Signed by the Association, FBI LEDA A Incorporated, and Ira Edwards, Board President, FBI LEDA Incorporated. I want to thank you for your leadership in getting this available for our command staff. And we, as I understand, we have other officer or senior staff.
It is not just for our command staff. We're starting to bring our sergeants through that program as well.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Chief,
That's so cool.
and for everyone to see. You're welcome. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chief, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, how many hours was it?
It's 3 weeks. It's 1 week per program.
Like a full 40 hours per week?
Not quite a full 40 hours a week.
Wow.
Program's designed it's to bring FBI Academy level instruction down to the local, smaller agencies and get that training in there and get those conversations going. They bring it to our local communities. We work with other command staff, their supervisory staff from local agencies from around the area.
So it wasn't on Zoom?
No, it wasn't on Zoom.
Right.
This was in person. This was,
Wow.
as we were going through
Very
COVID, was
impressive.
the year that I started the program. So we were following COVID protocol when we were allowed to have the classes. They did have some classes that were canceled.
Yeah.
That year, I was fortunate. It took me 2 years to get through the whole series of the program. Same thing with Lieutenant Cardwell, 2 years to get through it. And now we're starting our sergeants through the program.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Very cool.
That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Ben,
I have no report this week.
council reports. We'll start with David.
Okay, so in the personnel and safety side of the world, we have some new hires. Excuse me. Tom Castellucci is a full-time service worker in the Parks and Rec Department. He started on 3/6. And we have 2 part-time fire, Zachary Galea. Galel, thank you. Failed again on the pronunciation.
You got the first one was tough, though.
Yeah.
Yes. And then Patrick Klein, both were sworn in on 3/3. So there is one more promotion I'd like to mention. Ted Martinez, promoting from water treatment operator to operations manager. You are correct. We need better readers. Tad Martinez, thank you. And Tad's worked for the city for 17 years, started out as a seasonal worker, hired full-time in water distribution. He pursued his licenses and then moved into position of water treatment operator. His new role aligns with the HR succession planning that they have so that he'll be working under Superintendent Mark. Thank you. Wasn't even going to mess that up. Deserve more respect than having their names mispronounced. That's mine has been many times mispronounced. No, and congratulations to all of them. And I'll say it again, and I've said it many times before, the strength of our community is the people that work for the city. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to Stephanie.
Mayor, I just appreciate what you said regarding the lawsuit, and you couldn't have said it better. So I just appreciate that you made a comment regarding that, and that process and what happened. So thank you for that. I won't repeat that. And I thank you also, just everybody, for allowing us to have the NAACP here and Mr. McDaniel. We had a really good conversation, and I think him being in the room and just having those conversations allow us to move forward as a community and maybe start thinking about different things we can do and how we can collaborate with the NAACP. That's it.
Thank you. Daryl.
Mayor, I appreciate your comments about the mandamus action. I think it's important as we move forward to be mindful of the past, the recent past. These issues were not abstract. We have serious challenges facing us with regard to stormwater and street repair. These levies were not going to be imposed. They were to go to the voters and allow them, by direct democracy, to choose, to select a process to address those. I'm old-fashioned. I happen to believe that good law and good opinions reflect common sense. I respect the process that we have passed through. But I think the process was flawed. from start to finish. And somewhere along the line, the parties forgot the important salient point. We were attempting to solve a problem by going to the voters. Absent from the opinion, absent from the prosecutors, is a clear established position that if there are questions, deference is to be given to placing issues on the ballot. And that was not done. And in practical terms, let's hope we have a relatively dry series of summers before some council will address this. I hope that the parties, I don't expect it with the Supreme Court, the parties here that are to serve us and the voters of North Canton reflect on how we got here and do their very best to reform that process to ensure that another community does not have to go through this effort to fix its streets and stormwater. And other communities can do what we attempted to do, and that is go to the voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Christina?
I guess on the parks side of things, as has been mentioned, the dogwood improvements are, well, they're not started, but the plans for the dogwood improvements are coming along. We had a walkthrough with the architect last week. Very impressive, very exciting. So once things are more finalized there, we'll bring that and show to all of you. But yeah, I'm really excited about the concession stands and the locker rooms, and it's going to be pretty fantastic. Working on recreation for the summer, so talking through the Memorial Day Parade and Main Street Festival meetings are starting up, so I'll be attending those things on behalf of the city. And then I guess finally, Catherine and I are going to be touring all of the city parks over the next couple of months and kind of looking at priorities and just, you know, what are we doing? Where are we going? What's the priority? So I'm excited to do that. And that's all.
All right, thank you. Exciting. Okay, my turn.
You skipped John.
Oh, John. Why did I skip you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want a couple things. Thank you, Mayor, for your, the court, you said about the court. We as a council, I ran, and one of the objections I wanted to get across is better communication. And I feel we've done a pretty good job getting better communication out there. But we have, during this court, when I got 2 phone calls from constituents that already knew it happened, I didn't know anything about it. You know, we need to have maybe a little bit better communication here. Talking with Matt, he'd come up with I feel, maybe a nice idea that wouldn't violate any sunshine rules or anything of that nature, where maybe we start a call chain or something of that nature. I don't know when the city found out about it. My phone, I had 2 calls from constituents right about 11:30. So, or if we knew that there was a website out there that we could sign on, that would have been nice to maybe pass along to us, okay? I'm disappointed at the decision, but we gotta move on. It is what it is. But it was sort of like a win-loss. We lost the big thing, but we won because didn't they change, they somewhat changed the rule a little bit right afterwards. You know, so if we can develop, and I don't know if it's Ben's job, Matt's job, the administration, if we could get that word out to us, I feel that would be a lot better. I was disappointed, you know, but when I went in and I pick up the docket, he thinks he's old school, I'm very old school. So I pick up the docket, had a nice conversation with Patrick, who his door's always open, you know, and thank you, Pat, for being that way. But he explained some things to me and stuff, but I think we need to do maybe a little bit better informing each other without violating any sunshine law.
Yeah.
I continue walking the wards. And I say wards because I do cross streets and stuff. Our streets are terrible. Every road in Stark County is terrible. You know, we don't have the money to fix them like they need to be. But I encourage you to get out there, find some of those problems, pass them along to Pat, and we'll do the best we can. You know, but that's my report. Thank you.
He has a
Yeah,
comment.
go
If
ahead.
I might just
Yeah,
add,
go on.
just so the point of clarification. So, when the administration found out Friday afternoon, and I happened to be at the airport coming back from vacation and saw Mr. Wang out there doing his story on Breeze Airways. I think you were there Friday.
I was in there in the morning.
You were there in the morning, yeah.
Right.
So I got in about 9:30, 10 o'clock until I got my luggage and all that kind of thing. But, and so I called, President of the Council and the mayor. And, so I felt that, you know, I did our part in
Right.
getting the word.
I'm not
started.
blaming anybody, but we need to have a better system.
Yeah.
Did we know the decision was gonna be made that day?
No.
No,
Okay.
no, there's a docket you could have logged on to, but, it's, I mean, I'm not gonna sit in front of the computer, and do that and refresh it until it does. I'm sure that they notify people the old fashioned way, which would be a letter. I mean, I don't know, that's how the court usually does.
Cities get posted on that.
Sure, right. So, you know, in the future, I think maybe we'll do a call chain. I think that would probably be the best thing. Call somebody, they call somebody else. There's no sunshine laws that are gonna be broken on the announcement of news. So, yeah. Wanted to thank Hector McDaniel for coming in to speak. He brought up a lot of good points, and the NAACP, anybody can join.
I joined,
I mean,
you joined?
My wife and I are going to join.
Okay.
So we talked about that, and we talked about it before, and I don't know why we did.
Yeah.
It's silly that we didn't.
And there's
But it's
also
open for-
committees they need
Yeah.
help on, and
So, it'd be nice to get involved in that.
yeah,
Frank, congratulations.
Yeah.
Again, another example of you going above and beyond, and what you do and what your staff does is above and beyond. So thanks for that. On April 3rd, I believe, don't hold me to that date because I don't have anything to pass out. But the schools are gonna let the public go through on a tour to the facilities that are going to be no longer used. So when that becomes more solid, I'll announce that. And maybe we can share it on social media and everything. But I think it'd be nice for people to go, maybe if they, for the old Portage School,
yeah.
to walk through it one last time. Or, you know, Orchard Hill or Greentown. I think they'll continue using Orchard Hill for a year. And also, Northwood, but Greentown, I don't see anybody using that for anything at this point. But it would be nice to be able to have the opportunity to walk through on those. That's all I've got right now. Buy and support local. On a call for new business. Okay, so none. I will entertain the meetings calendar, sorry. On March 20th, we'll have no meeting. On the 27th, we'll have a regular city council.
Will there also be maybe a whole meeting on that, on the last day of?
Not at this time.
Not yet. Thanks.
I think we moved it up to
That
today.
committee is the committee we're about to have.
Okay.
That's why we did it this
So
way.
so you can't, you're not allowed to leave it.
Peter's way.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll take a short break and then we'll start the committee of the whole.
Oh, that's.
Okay, now call to order the committee of the whole meeting of March 13th, 2023. The time is 8:08 p.m. Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Orr?
Here.
Member Volt?
Here.
Member Schreier?
Here.
Member Waring?
Here.
Member Wyrick?
Here.
Member Matheny?
Here.
6 present. Member McLeister is absent.
Motion to excuse, Ms. Cleaver.
Troy, seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Community and economic development there.
Very good. Okay. as you know, we have adopted a new Main Street zoning regulation. As we begin to unfold it and utilize it, we are coming up or identifying some issues, challenges, or opportunities. Let me underscore all three that are associated with that zoning. And these particularly deal with what I would consider the auxiliary streets that come into Main Street but are under the Main Street zoning. As you know, we restrict types of businesses and uses. And so one of the questions has come up, or one of the opportunities has come up, is to have us amend the zoning ordinance to look at auxiliary streets. These would be the ones, you know, for example, Maple or Rose Lane or something. Can we permit a multi-unit dwelling, not on Main Street, but off Main Street, on that auxiliary street, but within the Main Street zoning categories? And so we have before you tonight a request that we send just that recommendation to the Planning Commission for its review. Again, it won't be mixed use. It will be residential immediately off Main Street, but within the Main Street zoning as a potentially permitted use. Patrick, have I summed that up?
Yeah, just to maybe add a little color to it.
Please.
So, as I'm out working on this, stuff, I'm recognizing that the question comes into play is, right now, like let's pick Harmon Street. And this is completely hypothetical, but as a side street, and parts of Harmon are within the Main Street zoning. And right now, as it stands, some of these parcels that are on Harmon obviously don't have frontage on Main Street, they're on Harmon Street. But as it's structured now, a building that could potentially go in would be required to put retail or commercial on the first floor, with residential on the second or third floor. Question is, how much commercial or retail do you want to spread off of Main Street into the neighborhoods? So what we were looking at is, maybe it makes sense that if you're in the Main Street zoning, but you don't have frontage on Main Street, because we've been concerned about commercial property, we want to maintain as much commercial property as we can. That's where we get a lot of our income tax base from. Would we then just allow a multi-unit dwelling off Main Street that wouldn't have to have a commercial or retail first floor?
And I think the advantage is that approach is actually more harmonious with an existing neighborhood that's around it. Again, that's our key, is we want to make sure that we have everything in balance, if you will. And this gives us an opportunity to make sure that that new development, which is what we see, is balanced with existing longstanding uses and healthy uses. Fair enough?
Mm-hmm. Well, the business, I agree with, but how much more rental units do we want in the city?
Well, John, you asked a fair question. And I don't know, I don't think anybody sitting here has a definitive idea of what is the appropriate amount. When you talk to, I guess when I look at what's happening across the country as it relates to housing and the housing sector, I don't think that we're the needle in the haystack. I think we're much like every place else, and there is not enough housing. And in what that housing is made up of, though, is it single family?
It's enough affordable.
Is it a town home structure? is it a traditional apartment building structure? I don't, quite know the answers to that. We would certainly like to see some of these other types of housing here, but, and, I know we've been working on the rental registration program, and we're getting, lots of usable data. And, I look at the rent structure. I don't know if you happen to remember that number, Ben, what the average rent.
So on average, based on the information we've got from the rental registration program, the average is around 800, but the median is about 700 a month. So that means 50% is more than 700, but 50% is less than 700.
When we talk about affordable housing, that's certainly affordable,
Right.
I guess, how I'm looking at it. What I think there is a need for still is a level above that is less than home ownership, but is not quite that.
Man, I think you're spot on. I mean, one of the things that we're gonna have is a fairly accurate snapshot of the condition of our housing, whether it's rental or owner occupied. Because what Ben's doing is merging these various databases to give us a more accurate picture of owner occupied and rentals. Perhaps some future council or this council will want to take a look at a strategy to achieve exactly what Patrick has talked about. How to replace the bad stuff with new that is higher density perhaps and higher capital value. It doesn't have to be rental. We know on South Main Street that we have 2, 3 very successful condominium projects. Zablon. That sold for, each unit sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they're really an asset. So the question is, how do we get from where we are to there? Open question.
If I may add on to that, the average density of permitted density in the Main Street districts is only 7 units an acre. So it's going to lend itself much more to brownstones, townhomes, condos than large apartment complexes.
Right, we also have a nice, the vacant land over there by Roses, where the waterside, that's another area that really could be developed nicely. We don't own it, but.
But again, I would come back to your point is, his point is, if we kind of know what we need to remedy, where we want to go, we think we ought to go as a community. It's just incumbent upon us to figure out what that strategy is and who we work with to get there. And I think it's doable. I see this in other communities outside Stark County. It is happening elsewhere. It can happen here. We can just figure out the appropriate course.
We did that, was that not addressed in the master plan around the middle school with the park there and that type of row homes or what? I think that was addressed in the master plan. It's referenced.
I think related to that, I think this really does relate to the master plan. I mean, we want a more walkable Main Street area, right? So we're not talking about changing anything with buildings with frontage on Main Street. Is that right? These are just like the side streets.
The
So
auxiliary streets.
yeah, so we're going to have, great things happening along Main Street, and then these side streets, auxiliary streets, are where we're going to attract the Walsh grads that we're trying to keep, right? Like these people who are leaving our community. So we're building the community they want to stay in, and then we're giving them a place to live.
Anyone else on this? The action item is really simple. We need to do 2 things. Number one is we need to punt this over to the planning commission. Well, that'll be one motion. And the second is that we're going to defer action until we have a report from the planning commission. So, and again, the proposal is to amend our Main Street zoning to permit these units off Main Street, but within the zone. Any other questions or comments? We'll wait the planning commission. Let me make a motion that we forward this proposal to the planning commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And I'll make a
Motion
motion
carries.
that we defer action until we have the planning commission report.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to Street and Alley Committee, that's me. So in this proposed ordinance, we would enter into a performance bond between the city and McKinley Apple Grove, which is Sanctuary Phase 3. This would be for a sidewalk performance bond. There's nothing super complicated about this. It's pretty standard. Anybody, Patrick, would you like to weigh in?
No.
Anything? I mean, it's nothing.
Custom.
Yeah, right.
Standard.
There's not a lot of details to it. It's
Nope.
just, yeah. Any comments, questions?
No.
Um,
Move to
I
adopt.
will move that we put this on the council agenda.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Was that,